Coming up on Network Africa, political watchers and they have their eyes keenly on South Sudan, which hopes to form a unity government by the end of today. And wailing and tears greet the body of late DR Congo music legend Pt.1's body as it arrives the country in preparation for the burial. And President Muhammadu Buhari orders crackdown on Fulani herdsmen perpetuating violence in Nigeria. This is Network Africa. To Network Africa, I am Adeshewa Josh. There could be a chance South Sudan's unity government could be formed by the end of today. The country has been plagued by months of unrest following distrust between President Salva Kiir and his former deputy Riek Machar. Machar came back to the country on Tuesday to take his position as first vice president, one of the agreements of the last discussions on a peace deal. Not everyone is happy with the agreement, though. Analysts say there is still distrust between the two leaders. But there has been some upside to this. The U.S. government announced $86 million in additional humanitarian funding for the country. It is, however, considering imposing sanctions if both leaders do not begin imposing the peace and signing the peace deal. Political conflict in the country has led to the death of thousands of people and displacement of millions since conflict broke out in December 2013. Well, it all started when the president accused Machar of trying to organize a coup, which he denies. Machar fled the country, but not before the disagreement set off a round of tit-for-tat killings that later developed into a full-blown conflict. It has been 28 months since that has started. Also, reports reaching us as that journalists are at the State House in Juba, still waiting to witness the signing of the deal. There is optimism on both sides, but then again, analysts are still saying there's distrust on both sides. And as we have mentioned earlier, the United States is also ready to impose sanctions if the deal is not signed. Well, it has been 28 months since Riek Machar was in South Sudan when that fighting broke out. We want to take you down the line through the journey to this peace deal. President Salva Kiir is confident this return will mark the end of the conflict. Well, during Machar's swearing in on Tuesday, he urged everyone to embrace the fact that they are all South Sudanese, united in love for the country and their desire to build a better country for themselves and many generations to come. President Kiir also said he recognized the international community had lost hope in the leadership's delay to implement the peace deal, but promised to immediately proceed to establish the transitional government to restore confidence in South Sudan's partners. While he acknowledged there are unresolved outstanding issues pending in the agreement, like the controversial creation of 28 states and the amendment of the constitution, which the two parties disagreed on. While the rest of Africa and the world watches, human rights groups are watching, and so far so good. They are least impressed by President Salva Kiir's words and promises, which says, enough with the apologies and promises. What South Sudan needs now is action. Nice words, but they wouldn't make up for the massive suffering experienced by civilians since clashes broke out. A litany of crimes were purportedly committed during the time. We're talking massacres, rape, torture, child recruitment, and the destruction of villages. In short, it's time to stop talking and taking action in South Sudan. Fingers crossed as we get more news on that story. Let's turn to Burundi now, where the United Nations says at least 31 people have been killed in fighting this month. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zaid Ra'ad Al Hussein, said in a statement that more than 400 people have been killed since conflict broke out last year over President Pierre Nkurunziza's announcement of a third-term bid, which he won in July. 250,000 people at least have been killed and fled the country, I beg your pardon. He is concerned there could be more deaths and targeted assassinations after the latest incident when a senior advisor to the first vice president was killed with his wife and daughter at her school. He is concerned also there could be increased violence in the East African country. The International War Crimes Court has said it would begin preliminary investigations which could lead to a full-blown investigation into the killings. Libya has confirmed the death of the Egyptian migrants and 3 people smugglers in the town of Bani Walid. They had been arguing over money. The smugglers that killed the migrants and were trying to drive away the bodies when they were caught at a checkpoint when security forces noticed there was blood coming out of the car. The United Nations says as many as 13 Egyptians had been killed in the incident and has called for an investigation. In the meantime, the European Union intends to discuss the possibility of sending back economic migrants in a new deal that could earn the country some aid from the international body. An EU diplomat is reported to have said that the EU and Nigeria have agreed to take the necessary steps to launch negotiations for a deal after meetings in Brussels last month. They have reportedly been working to secure a mandate from member countries to start the negotiations. If confirmed, the readmission agreement would be the bloc's first major return deal with a sub-Saharan African nation. Well, let's take a break on Network Africa. When we come back, President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered a crackdown on attacks by Fulani herdsmen who killed scores of people in southwest Nigeria. We have the details for you when we come back from this break. Do stay with us.